They called him the Buzzard, the most cunning pirate ever to sail the seas. Before the gallows took him, he laughed and tossed a scrap of parchment into the crowd. 17 strange lines, the key to a treasure worth billions. For 300 years, hunters have searched, and some say the ones who got close vanished into the waves. Hey guys, tonight we drift into the salt-soaked world of pirates, where legends aren't just told, they linger like the smell of gunpowder on the wind. You're standing on the edge of a creaking dock, the storm overhead splitting the sky into jagged flashes of white. Somewhere beyond the crowd's jeers, you hear the gulls, as if they know a soul is about to leave this world. The gallows looms ahead, and the Buzzard, Olivier Levasseur, stands with his hands bound, grinning like a man who knows a secret you never will. You probably won't survive this, but then again, nobody who chased his secret ever did. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Post your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The ropes groan under the rain, each drop cold against your skin as you push forward through the crowd. You're close enough now to see the thin scar slicing across the Buzzard's cheek, the one he supposedly got in a duel over a single emerald. Historians still argue whether he earned his nickname from the way he circled enemy ships, waiting for them to weaken, or from the vulture feather he always kept tucked into his tricorn. A crack of lightning explodes over the harbor, lighting the world for half a heartbeat, and in that moment, he moves. With a flick of his bound hands, he tosses something into the mass of drenched faces. A scrap of parchment flutters like a dying moth before vanishing into the chaos. You hear the splash as someone drops it, then the growl of another man shoving forward to grab it. The Buzzard's grin widens. "Find it, if you dare," he says, his voice low but somehow carrying over the storm. The rope jerks. The crowd gasps. Somewhere a gull laughs. You can still see it. 17 strange lines crammed with crooked letters and odd symbols, glimpsed for just an instant when the parchment passed through your hands before someone else ripped it away. In that single flash, you felt it. A pull, like the tide tugging at your ankles. The executioner cuts the body down quickly. The storm is getting worse. You drift away from the dock, stepping over puddles that smell of fish and blood. The alleys beyond the port are narrow and slick, their lanterns swaying. Somewhere in the crowd behind you, a fist fight breaks out. Maybe over the parchment, maybe over nothing. That's how this port is. By the time you reach the crooked boarding house at the far end of the quay, you've already decided you're not leaving without finding those 17 lines again. It's not about the gold, at least that's what you tell yourself. It's about the fact that you saw him smile. And people like the Buzzard don't smile unless they know something worth smiling about. Later, lying in the sway of a rope hammock, you can't sleep. The storm hasn't passed. It just moved offshore. Its thunder now a distant, lazy growl. Every time you close your eyes, you see the parchment. And every time you reach for it, someone snatches it away. You wonder if the others who saw it tonight are thinking the same thing. Somewhere far off, a ship's bell rings 3 times. The night smells like wet rope, tar, and the faint sweetness of rum drifting from the tavern below. You don't realize you've drifted to the window until you're staring out at the dark line of the horizon, watching lightning bloom over the waves. You imagine the Buzzard's treasure lying somewhere out there. Chests spilling with gold, pearls the size of a child's fist, and relics stolen from temples you've never heard of. Then you remember the whisper you overheard once in a port tavern about how half the men who chased his map never came back, and the half who didn't last long. That's the thing about pirates. They take your life whether you find their treasure or not. Still, you tell yourself, if anyone can outwit a ghost, it's you. The next morning, the storm is gone, leaving the streets washed clean but reeking of low tide. You follow the smell of baking bread toward the market, knowing that's where rumors travel fastest. And sure enough, the whispers are already there. Murmurs about the man who grabbed the parchment after you, how he left port before dawn with 3 rough-looking sailors and enough rum to drown a cow. You lean against a fishmonger's stall, pretending to examine a red snapper, while your ears drink in every word. Historians still argue whether the Buzzard wrote the cipher himself or stole it from a Jesuit missionary who'd gone mad on some nameless island. Either way, those 17 lines are now your only lead. That evening, you find yourself in a dim back room above the tavern, a single candle sputtering between you and a man who swears he can recreate the cipher from memory. He lays a scrap of oil-stained paper on the table, its edges curling like dried leaves. And there it is. Line after line of cramped handwriting, scattered with strange marks, spirals, suns with too many rays, a crude sketch of a bird mid-flight. Every letter's a lie, the man says, his voice a rasp from too many years at sea. It's not what it says, it's what it hides. He leans closer. And if you start at the wrong place, you'll never make it home. The candlelight dances across the page, and you swear the ink itself seems to shift, like waves over a reef. One of the symbols, 3 jagged lines, makes you think of the reef outside the harbor, the one sailors call the Devil's Teeth. Could that be the starting point? A gull screeches outside, startling you. The man laughs softly, and you notice he's missing the same tooth the Buzzard was rumored to have lost in a knife fight. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the sea has more ways of keeping its secrets than you care to know. By the time you leave, the sun has dipped low, bleeding into the water. The paper is folded tight in your pocket, warm from your hand. The streets are quieter now, the scent of frying fish mingling with wood smoke. You pass a group of children playing a game with shells, and one of them hums a tune you've never heard before, except you have. You heard the Buzzard whistle it on the gallows. Back in your rented room, you spread the paper on the desk and light 2 candles. Your eyes trace the words again and again, finding patterns you swear weren't there before. You notice a sequence. 3rd letter of the first line, 4th of the next, then the 5th. It spells deep. And beside that word is a small drawing of a bird diving into waves. You make notes on the back of a receipt, your handwriting growing sloppier as the room feels warmer, the air heavier. Outside, the tide is rising fast, faster than you've ever seen it. You tell yourself it's nothing, just the moon playing tricks. Still, before blowing out the candle, you hide the paper under the mattress. The last thing you think about before sleep takes you is how the ink shimmered in the light, like it was alive. Section 3. You wake to the sound of creaking wood, but it's not the boarding house. It's the deck of a ship. Or at least that's what it feels like as you open your eyes and find the room swaying. The tide outside is so high, the water slaps against the street pilings, and the harbor beyond glistens under a dull pewter sky. The cipher burns in your pocket like a second heartbeat. You've made up your mind. The Buzzard's riddle starts at the devil's teeth, and you're not about to wait for someone else to beat you there. By midday, you've found a vessel, a battered sloop called the Minnow's Debt, and a captain willing to take you out for the right price. He's a wiry man named Kelso, his beard streaked with silver and his eyes sharp as a gull's. Historians still argue whether Kelso once sailed under the Buzzard himself or just liked to tell the story, but either way, he knows the waters you're after. Those teeth'll eat your hull faster than a hungry shark, Kelso warns, leaning on the rail as the wind fills the sail. Best hope your map's not leading you to your own funeral. The waves grow choppier as you leave the safety of the harbor. The air smells of salt and something else, like copper left too long in the rain. The Minnow's Debt cuts through the swells, its sails snapping like pistol shots. You take out the parchment, shielding it from the spray. One of the jagged line symbols now makes perfect sense. It mirrors the skyline of the reef ahead, 3 black spires jutting from the sea like a monster's teeth. But another mark, a spiral tucked beside it, still eludes you. As you draw closer, the sea changes color. It shifts from deep blue to a glassy green, then to a sickly yellow where the shallows hide sharp coral heads just beneath the surface. The crew murmurs about shipwrecks buried here, their masts still standing like crosses under the waves. And then you see it. Wedged between 2 spires is the broken hull of a galleon, its ribs jutting out like the bones of a whale. You grip the rail as Kelso steers closer, the water boiling with unseen currents. The cipher says nothing about a wreck, but it feels like a sign. You lean over, catching sight of something glinting deep below. Too bright to be coral, too steady to be a fish. The temptation is immediate. Gold? Jewels? Or just the sea's way of luring you in? One of the younger crewmen, barely more than a boy, sidles up to you. "My uncle dove here once," he says, voice low. "Came back with a pearl the size of his eye. Sold it, bought a tavern. 6 months later, the place burned down, with him in it." You glance back at the glint. Still there. Still waiting. Kelso drops anchor in the lee of a jagged spire. "This is as close as we go without losing her keel," he says. "If you want whatever's down there, you swim. The water's cold enough to bite as you slide in, but it's clear enough to see the shapes below. Coral fans sway like slow dancers. Schools of silver fish scatter in bursts of light. And there, at the base of the wreck, is the source of the glint. A brass plate, engraved with the same spiral from the cipher. You run your fingers over it, feeling the grooves. The plate is bolted to the wood, but a rusted hinge lets you flip it open. Inside is a hollow, and within that hollow, a rolled strip of parchment wrapped in oilcloth. You stuff it into your belt before surfacing, lungs burning. Back aboard, you unwrap it to find a single word written in neat, deliberate hand. Echoes. The letters are sharp, as if cut into the page rather than written. The crew stares. Kelso mutters, "That's not treasure. That's trouble." But you know better. Or worse. The next step of the Buzzard's riddle just revealed itself. and it's somewhere you've never heard of. The word echoes gnaws at you all the way back to port. You try it aloud, letting it roll over your tongue, soft at first, then sharper, like the name of a place meant to be whispered in the dark. By the time you step onto the dock, you're certain it's not just a word. It's a direction. The map from the first parchment still nags at your thoughts, and now the spiral symbol makes more sense. A swirl of sound, a place where noise circles back on itself. You spend the rest of the day prowling the taverns, the market, and the sailors' dens, dropping the word into casual conversation to see who reacts. Most laugh it off. A few mutter superstitions about sirens. But one old fisherman just stares at you with pale, filmy eyes and says, "Don't go there." The isle answers back. That night, you find him again on the pier, gutting a line of fish that glisten silver in the moonlight. He tells you about an island 2 days' sail from here, unmarked on most charts, where voices don't die when you stop speaking. They repeat, sometimes in your own tone, sometimes not. Historians still argue whether the phenomenon is just wind in the cliffs or something stranger, but everyone agrees it's a place you don't visit twice. Kelso refuses to take you. "I'm not losing my ship to a talking rock," he says, spitting over the side. But a younger captain, eager for coin and a story to brag about, agrees to make the run. By dawn, you're aboard the Whispering Tide, sails full and prow cutting clean through an almost glassy sea. 2 days later, the Isle of Echoes rises out of the horizon like the back of a sleeping beast. The cliffs are sheer, black as obsidian, streaked with white where seabirds nest in impossible ledges. The sound hits you before the sight fully does, a low, drawn-out murmur that seems to come from the stone itself, not the water. It's like hearing your own thoughts said back to you a heartbeat late. You land on a narrow strip of pale sand, the jungle beyond humming with insect life. The cliffs loom high on either side, and the air feels thicker here, as if the island's holding its breath. You call out, just to test it, "Hello!" and the word comes back, perfectly timed, in your own voice. The captain laughs, but his laughter echoes back with a strange edge to it, like someone else laughing through him. The cipher's next mark is here. You know it before you see it. Carved into the base of one cliff is a symbol, the spiral again, but this time surrounded by tiny birds etched in flight. You run your hand over the grooves, the stone warm despite the shade. Behind it, there's a narrow fissure in the rock, wide enough for a person to squeeze through sideways. Inside, the air is cooler and smells faintly of damp earth. The walls are close, your shoulders brushing them, and every sound you make multiplies, folding over itself until you can't tell which footstep is yours and which belongs to someone or something else. After what feels like far too long in the dark, the fissure opens into a small chamber where the floor dips into a shallow pool. In the water, half buried, is a wooden chest the size of a bread box. Its lid is carved with the same bird you saw on the first parchment. You lift it free, the water sloshing inside. When you pry it open, expecting gold or jewels, you find only a smooth stone, perfectly round, with a hole bored clean through its center. It hums faintly in your palm, and when you hold it to your ear, you hear a voice, a whisper, soft as a sigh, say, "Closer." You drop it back into the chest, heart hammering. The captain refuses to touch it. "Isn't ours," says, backing toward the fissure. You can't argue. You can only close the lid, take the chest under your arm, and let the island repeat your retreat every step of the way. By the time you're back aboard the Whispering Tide, the hum has faded, but not entirely. The hum from the stone follows you all the way back to port, as if the Isle of Echoes lodged itself inside your skull. You try to sleep that first night, but every time you drift off, you hear it. Sometimes like a seashell pressed to your ear, sometimes like a voice just beyond your cabin door. By morning, you decide to seek someone who knows more about cursed things. That leads you to a weathered inn on the edge of the harbor, its sign swinging on one chain, the paint almost worn away. Inside, the air smells of pipe smoke and stewed fish. The innkeeper is a narrow woman with skin like old parchment and a gaze that feels like it's measuring the weight of your soul. You put the chest on the counter. She doesn't touch it, just stares. Then, without a word, she walks to a locked cabinet and takes out a small silver flask. "You found part of it," she says finally, her voice rough from years of shouting over storm winds. "My husband found one too." The story spills out over mugs of bitter coffee. Her husband had been a fisherman, nothing more, until a storm blew him far off course. He came back with a similar stone and a pouch of gold coins so old their edges had worn smooth. That very night, he told her they could finally leave this place. But before dawn, he was gone. Boat still tied to the dock, no footprints in the mud. Historians still argue whether disappearances like his are superstition or simply the dangers of a coastal life. But her eyes say she's already made up her mind. "I buried the stone," she tells you. 2 days later, the ground was empty. You open your mouth to ask more, but she holds up a hand. Whatever you're chasing, it's not meant to be found. Leave it in the water and go home. The advice is solid, if you were the sort to listen. Instead, you press her for anything she remembers about where her husband claimed he was headed next. She resists, but eventually admits he mentioned lights on the water, far out to sea. She doesn't know if they were ships or something else, but she swears he saw them before he vanished. That night, back in your room, you lay the stone on the table and light 2 candles. You speak the word from the second parchment, echoes, into the hole at its center. The hum deepens. The wax trembles. And for the briefest moment, you smell rain on open water and hear the creak of sails. Then, in the far corner of the room, something flickers, a faint silvery glow, like lantern light seen through fog. You blink, and it's gone. You're not sure if you just imagined it, but you already know what you're doing next. You're going to find those lights. The morning you set out to chase the lights, the harbor is oddly still. No gulls, no shouting dockhands, just the low slap of water against hulls. You hire a small crew willing to take coin without too many questions. And by midday, you're steering into a sea as flat as hammered tin. The stone from the Isle of Echoes hangs in a pouch at your neck, warm against your chest. You tell yourself it's just your body heat, but you've noticed something unsettling. It warms more when you face west. That's the direction the widow said her husband saw the lights. By nightfall, the first appears, a single glimmer far off the bow, faint but steady. Then another to the south. The crew mutters. Some say it's a lantern. Others claim it's fire dancing on the waves. Historians still argue whether such lights at sea are caused by phosphorescent plankton, mirages, or something stranger. But your gut tells you these aren't natural. Hours pass. The lights grow brighter, shifting position like they're beckoning you to follow. The air changes too, saltier, heavier, with a tang of metal that stings your nose. By the time the moon slips behind clouds, the lights have formed a crooked line leading straight into the darkness. You sail on. The sea beneath glows faintly now, as if lit from below. Then, through the mist, a shape emerges. An old brig, sails tattered but catching wind that doesn't touch your own. No crew, no movement, just a faint shimmer clinging to its timbers, like moonlight that refuses to fade. The crew hesitates. "That's a ghost ship," someone whispers, and no one laughs. You drop the anchor yourself, lowering the skiff and rowing toward the drifting hull. The water is so clear you can see the ship's shadow on the seabed, though you can't tell how deep it lies. Climbing aboard, you notice the deck is dry despite the sea spray. The air is still, muffled, as if you've stepped into another world. A single lantern burns at the bow, its flame steady and cold blue. Beside it sits a brass compass, unlike any you've seen, its needle spinning lazily, stopping now and then to point toward nothing in particular. You pocket it. The moment you do, the lantern flares, and somewhere below deck, you hear movement. Not footsteps, more like the shifting of ropes, the creak of wood under strain. Following the sound, you descend into the hold. It's empty except for a table in the center, and on that table, a sheet of parchment weighed down by a small iron key. You unfold it. The handwriting matches the cipher from the gallows, but this page contains only one line. Beneath the drowned bells. You take the key, fold the parchment, and head back topside. The lantern has gone out. The lights on the horizon are gone too. And when you look toward your own ship, it's farther away than it should be. Much farther. You row hard, muscles burning. Every glance back shows the ghost brig slipping deeper into the mist, until there's nothing left but empty water. You don't stop rowing until you feel the thud of your skiff hitting your ship's hull. That night, you lie awake in your hammock, the key cold in your fist, and the phrase looping in your head like a tide that won't turn. Beneath the drowned bells. Beneath the drowned bells. The words feel heavier each time you turn them over in your mind, like they've been soaked in seawater for centuries. You spend the next day haunting the harbor taverns, trading drinks for scraps of lore. Most sailors shrug or claim never to have heard the phrase, but an old diver, face lined like a chart of forgotten coasts, leans close when you mention it. "There's a reef south of here," he says, shaped like a horseshoe. "Storm took a whole mission church into the water 100 years ago. They say the bells still ring down there when the tide's right." Historians still argue whether the so-called drowned cathedral was ever real or just a cautionary tale for sailors. But your gut says this is the place. By dawn, you've hired the same diver to take you there. Because if bells really do ring under the waves, you're going to hear them. The sail south is smooth, the sky pale and clean. By midday, the reef comes into view, black rock breaking the surface, white froth curling over its edges. The diver leads you into the water, the chill hitting like a slap. Visibility is good. Shafts of light pierce the surface, painting the coral in gold and green. Then you see them. Stone arches, half buried in sand, and beyond them, 2 massive bronze bells swaying gently in the current. The sound is faint but real, a low, ghostly toll that vibrates in your bones more than in your ears. At the base of one bell, a carved stone slab bears the Buzzard's spiral symbol. You wedge your fingers under it, straining until it tilts enough to reveal a hollow underneath. Inside, a small leather pouch sealed with wax. The diver watches, wide-eyed, as you break the seal to find a third scrap of parchment. This one says only, "Where gold sleeps in silence." You're about to surface when you notice something else, a shadow moving at the edge of your vision. You turn, and for an instant, you swear you see a figure standing in the archway of the drowned cathedral. Too far to touch, too still to be a fish. Watching. You kick hard for the surface, lungs burning. When you break into the air, the reef feels smaller, the sky closer. The diver won't meet your eyes. Back on the boat, you sit dripping and shivering despite the sun. You keep replaying that moment under the water. The bells still toll faintly in your ears, and the figure in the archway, if it was ever really there, feels like it's still looking for you. Fog rolls in like a careful thief, taking first the horizon, then the waterline, and finally the edges of your own hands. It's the kind that doesn't just hide things. It presses on your skin, whispering that maybe you don't need to see at all. Your crew hates it. You can feel the mood change the way you feel the tide through your boots. Subtle, steady, inevitable. The pouch with the bell parchment sits in your pocket, damp with sea salt and sweat. In the other pocket, the iron key from the ghost brig thumps your thigh with each step. And at your chest, warm as breath, the stone from the Isle of Echoes hums like a cat who knows you're about to set down a full plate of sardines. It should be reassuring, proof you're on the trail. But right now, it's just one more sound no one else admits to hearing. You're on deck when the voices start, low and angled, like knives left carelessly in a drawer. Two sailors, Tallis and Hob, are hunched over the rail, glancing at you and then away, at the fog, then back to your chest. The third, a big-shouldered man named Cray, doesn't glance. He stares. "Stone sings louder every league," Cray says finally, as if he's making a weather report. "Since the bells." You offer a shrug that you hope reads as casual and not ripe target for a shove. "Stones don't sing. The wind does." He smiles without humor. Then the wind knows your name. You think about telling him that. Historically, crews enforced calm with rum and rules, a kind of floating democracy. Real pirate ships kept articles, written codes about pay, plunder splits, and even compensations for lost limbs. But this isn't a democracy, and you're fairly certain quoting maritime jurisprudence won't help when the man across from you could lift a cannonball with one hand and an attitude. From the quarterdeck, Kelso clears his throat. He's not your captain anymore. The Whispering Tide belongs to a younger man, sure. But you can tell Kelso hates this fog enough to take command by sheer disapproval. "Strike the topsail," he calls, and the crew moves, relieved to do something with ropes that is neither strangling nor tying someone to a mast. The fog muffles everything but fear. Sailcloth thuds softly. Blocks clack. And below it all, that hum at your chest, steady as a heartbeat you didn't know you had. You tuck the stone into your shirt, and when your hand comes away, the tips of your fingers are tingling, as if you'd touched metal in winter. Hob steps into your path. "We need to see it," he says. "All of it. The papers, the key." The words come out polite, The stance does not. You consider the obvious, say no, and the next sound is your skull meeting deck. But you also consider the thing the widow said. Whatever you're chasing, it's not meant to be found. Your brain is good at inconvenient timing. Fine, you say. Slow, like you're teaching a child to blow out a candle. A look. You spread your finds on an upturned crate. The 17-line cipher, water-stained and mean-looking. The second parchment with echoes in that too-sharp hand. The line from the ghost brig, beneath the drowned bells. The leather pouch with where gold sleeps in silence. And the iron key, pitted and stubborn. The crew leans in. Even the fog seems to bend, like it's curious too. Tallis taps the cipher with a grubby nail. This part here. He points to the spiral and bird mark. You skipped something. Didn't skip, you say. Read it, lived it. The Isle of Echoes is real. Cray snorts. Islands are real. Curses are profitable. He's right about the second part. Fear sells. But you remember the chamber's cold breath and that whisper through the stone. Closer. From the helm, the young captain, Rook, watches without speaking, his jaw tight. He's smart enough to know you don't outrun fog or crew superstition by yelling. You ease one parchment aside and notice, for the first time, a faint smear along the edge where salt dried strange. When you tilt it, letters glimmer, very faint, like shy minnows. Look, you say, and the men actually do. The smear resolves into a line that was invisible in ordinary light. Turn the silence twice. Hob blinks. What in sin does that mean? Cray answers first. Means we've got to twist that stone you're hiding like it's a capstan, and maybe it'll sing us a shanty about buried gold. You almost laugh. You do a little. Soft, to keep the ASMR gods happy. If the stone starts singing, I'm charging admission. Kalkschomwelch. But you try it. The hole through the center of the echo stone is smooth, edges worn like a worry coin. You hold it to your lips and whisper, silence, turning the stone once, twice. The hum deepens, drops into a register that purrs along your ribs. Somewhere in the fog, a bell tolls, not the drowned cathedral's bronze bass, but something closer, higher, like a deck bell rung with a careful hand. Nobody moves. Even the sea seems to wait. From the starboard side, a light blooms, small at first, then widening into a diffuse glow that stains the fog like tea in water. Not lantern light. Too steady. Too patient. The glow stretches into a narrow lane shining across the surface. The crew murmurs prayers you recognize from 3 religions and at least 1 card game. Joke 2. Rook speaks at last. We'll follow it. The relief is palpable. Action beats fear, even if the action is following a ghost road with the subtlety of a drunk crab. You inch forward, the ship advancing at barely more than a drift. The glow keeps its distance, always a ship's length ahead, like the sea is laying down an illuminated breadcrumb trail. After a few minutes, the lane splits. One path veers left, dimmer. The other curves right, brighter. Starboard, Cray says. Always follow the brighter omen. Historians still argue whether sailors chose omens or omens chose sailors, you say. Because if you can't be helpful, you might as well be accurate. Also, talking calms your hands. Rook hesitates. Then he does something clever. He tosses a coil of line to port, watching how it lands on the water. It jerks backward, pulled by a current you can't feel from the deck. He nods. Port Lane. Current's with us. Cray doesn't like the decision. Men like him want light they can punch. But he grunts acceptance. The ship angles left, and at once the fog thickens behind you. A door closing. Ahead, the glow narrows to a slit, and then nothing. It snaps out. You feel the crew inhale as one body. The silence that follows is different from ordinary quiet. It has weight. Then the deck tilts just a hair, not enough to shout about, but enough to make everyone grab for wood. Rook's knuckles whiten on the wheel. The ship is being drawn, not fast, but firm, like a fish on a long line. Belay, Kelso says softly, which is sailor for, I would like the ocean to cut it out now. Lines are made fast, sails reefed to nubs. You plant your feet and try not to think of the drowned arches or the figure you maybe saw watching. The pull stops. The fog parts in a tight ring, as if a giant took a cookie cutter to the mist. In that clear space floats a skiff. No oars, no rope, no one aboard. Just a skiff, bobbing, as innocent as a cradle. Hob whispers, "That's for it." You don't know if he means you or the stone, and you're not keen to ask. Cray moves first, shoving you hard enough that you hop to keep your balance. "Take the cursed pebble and go," he says. "Bring back proof or don't come back at all." Rook steps between you, palms out. "Nobody goes alone." His voice is steady, but his eyes flick to the stone at your chest. The crew's mood is a powder magazine, and he knows it. We draw lots, and drawing lots on a rolling deck is as dignified as a seagull stealing your lunch. But you do it anyway. You pull a short bit of match. Because of course you do. Joke 3, gentle groan optional. Hob pulls the other. He meets your eyes with the look of a man already regretting meeting your eyes. You climb down together. The skiff is dry, wood warm from what exactly? Sunlight? There isn't any. You set the stone between you, and the hum returns, fainter now, as if pleased. "Row," Hob offers, holding up oars that weren't there a moment ago. He doesn't comment on that, which is considerate. You nod. 2 strokes, 4, and the ring of fog expands, keeping pace. The ship drifts behind, every face turned your way, small as toy soldiers. The water darkens ahead, from pewter to slate. When you look over the gunwale, the sea is glass clear, revealing a floor of sand cut with straight lines. No, not lines. Grooves, like something large was hauled across this place, over and over, until the bottom remembered. "Where gold sleeps in silence," you murmur, and Hob flinches. The skiff glides to a stop over a darker circle, as neat as a hatch. You don't need to say it. You both feel it. Down. You tie the stone's thong around your wrist, grip the iron key, and draw a long breath. The water is cold, but you've been colder. You dive. It's not far, 10 feet, maybe 12, but it feels like pushing through a curtain of thick fabric. The darker circle resolves into iron set into stone, a real hatch with a keyway furred by salt. You fit the key. It protests, then remembers its job and turns with a hungry click. The hatch eases open. No bubbles rush out, no monster's breath. Inside is only darkness. No, not only. In the dark, something faint glows. A spiral scratched into the inner rim, twin to the cipher's mark. You slip your fingers in, and the hum of the stone climbs your arm like a ladder. When you break the surface, the fog ring is smaller. The ship is closer. Rook must have edged in. Hobbs' eyes are very wide. Well? You don't know what to call what you found. Not treasure, not yet. Just a promise. You lift your hand to show him, and that's when someone shouts from the ship. A shape moves at the rail. Cray, perhaps, or someone with his appetite. You can't hear the words, but you hear the intent. The mutiny doesn't look like men with knives and roaring voices. It looks like 3 lines going slack, like a sail loosed at the wrong moment, like a wheel turned half a spoke too far. The ship heels. Rook fights it. Kelso swears. Antique poetry. The skiff bobs in the new swell. Back, Hobbs says, and you both dig oars. The fog ring shrinks again, as if telling you, kindly, to hurry. When you reach the ladder, hands haul you in. Rooks, Kelsos, someone whose name you never learned. The deck is chaos without volume. Men moving fast, mouths tight. Cray stands with 2 others, blocking the companionway to the hold. This ends now, he says. No more chasing lights, no more ghosts. Throw the stone over, burn the parchments, toss the key. He points at the sea like a judge indicating the gallows. You hold his gaze while inside your fist, the key still tastes like salt and old iron. The stone warms against your wrist, a pulse that's almost patient. Funny thing, you say softly, about throwing things overboard. The sea keeps what it wants. For a moment, nobody moves. Fog breathes along the deck. Bells that aren't there toll, just once, so faintly you could pretend you imagined it. Historians still argue whether Blackbeard really tied slow-burning fuses in his beard to look like a sea devil or whether that was PR, cooked up by terrified merchants. But you suddenly understand the marketing. Sometimes fear is the only currency that spends. Cray takes a step. Rook does too, in the opposite direction. The crew becomes 2 crews in the space of a breath. Somewhere behind you, the hatch you opened under the water waits with infinite patience for someone, anyone, to be clumsy. You lift your hands, palms out. No blood, you say. You want an end? The map is close to it. Let me finish the line. If I'm wrong, I'll be the one who feeds the gulls. Kelso huffs a laugh that's half cough. Gulls prefer chips. It's nothing, and it's everything. The deck exhales. Cray's jaw works. He nods once, curt as a cut rope. One more line, then the sea eats your toys. Deal struck, if not peace. The fog thins to the color of breath on glass. You tuck the parchments into your coat. Feel the stone settle. Feel the key choose a pocket like it was always meant to live there. Someone will betray someone before morning. You know it. The sea knows it. But for now, the ship steadies, the wheel centers, and the hum at your chest keeps time with your heart. You make port at dawn, but something's wrong. No gulls wheel overhead. No shouts from the fishmongers. The air feels thick, like a room where someone's just stopped talking. The harbor itself looks normal at first. Boats moored, nets hung to dry. But as you step off the gangplank, the silence hits you like a wall. You walk past barrels of salted cod, with their lids half open, tools left mid-task, a mug of beer still foaming on a tavern table. Not a soul in sight. Historians still argue whether silent ports ever existed outside of sailors' yarns. But you know this isn't just bad luck or a timed evacuation. There's gold scattered in the dirt, gold coins, dulled with age, lying in the open like someone upended a chest and walked away. You kneel to pick one up. It's heavy, stamped with a crest you've never seen. The coin is warm. You pocket it, because of course you do, and keep moving. The map's clues have led you here. Isle of Echoes, drowned bells, and you're starting to suspect where gold sleeps in silence wasn't just poetic. It's literal. You push open the tavern door. The hinges groan in the quiet. Inside, chairs are overturned, playing cards scattered. A hand of 3 kings and 2 aces waits on the table, mid-game. A breeze moves through the room, but the front door is the only opening. Then you hear it. Faint at first, almost under your own breath, a low hum matching the pitch of the echo stone at your chest. You follow it upstairs, past empty rooms, until you find a locked door at the end of the hall. The iron key fits. Inside is a single trunk, its surface carved with spirals and birds. You flip the latch and lift the lid. No gold, just another scrap of parchment, this one written in the same sharp hand. Vault in the Black Cliffs. You're about to close it when something moves in the corner, a figure, just visible, standing perfectly still. Your chest goes cold. The head turns slightly toward you. You blink, and it's gone. You back out, locking the door behind you. The streets are still empty when you return to the dock, but now the gold coins are gone. Every last one. The only proof the place wasn't a dream is the parchment in your pocket, and the echo of that hum still sitting behind your ribs. The phrase "vault in the Black Cliffs" stays with you through the long, restless night at sea. You picture it over and over, dark stone rising from the water, waves foaming at its base, a hidden mouth somewhere in the shadows. By midday, the coastline changes. The cliffs here are taller, jagged, streaked with salt and guano. They loom like a wall meant to keep the ocean in. Even the crew falls quiet as the ship edges closer. Kelso points with his pipe. "That's Buzzard's back," he says. "Only fools try to land here, and dead fools try to climb." Historians still argue whether this stretch was ever used as a smuggler's hideout. But the stories agree on one thing. Caves riddle the base, and more than one treasure was hidden where the tide can guard it twice a day. You take the skiff in, rowing slow between jagged teeth of rock. The swell surges and pulls, and twice you have to backwater hard to avoid smashing the hull. Then, just as the tide begins to ebb, you see it. A narrow opening, half hidden behind a curtain of falling spray. The skiff scrapes stone as you nose in. Inside, the sound changes. Less roar, more hollow breath. The walls glitter faintly where veins of quartz catch the dim light. You tie off to a rock spur and step onto a ledge slick with moss. The iron key slides into a lock set into a massive wooden door banded with rusted iron. It turns with a sound like a sigh. The door swings inward. The vault is larger than you expected, a chamber carved by both hands and water. In the center, chests, dozens of them, stacked and scattered, lids thrown open. Gold coins spill in heaps, jewels glitter in the dark. But scattered among the treasure are other things. Scraps of parchment, carved stones, and bones. You move closer. The gold is real. You can feel its weight as you lift a handful. But the bones, some human, some not, are arranged in patterns on the floor, spirals and circles echoing the marks on the cipher. In the far wall, a second door stands closed, its surface carved with the Buzzard's spiral. You run your hand over it and feel the faint hum of the echo stone deepen in response. The door has no lock, just a round hole in the center, exactly the size of the stone. You hesitate, the weight of every warning pressing on you. Then you press the stone into place. The hum floods the chamber. The second door shudders, then slowly swings open. Beyond it is a narrow tunnel, and in the dimness, you think you see movement, shapes slipping back into shadow. The crew calls from the skiff, their voices tight. The tide is turning fast. You have minutes before this chamber floods. You grab a single chest, small enough to carry, and pull the stone free. The hum cuts off instantly. Back in the skiff, rowing hard against the tide, you can't stop thinking about that second door and what might still waiting behind it. That night, the sea is black glass, the stars sharp enough to cut your fingers if you reached up. You can't sleep, not with the weight of the small chest in your cabin, not with the second door and the black cliffs still sitting in your head like an unfinished sentence. You take the chest onto the deck, away from the sleeping crew. The moonlight turns the brass fittings silver. You unlatch it. Inside, you don't find gold. Not exactly. It's coins, yes, but old, stamped with faces and crests you've never seen, their edges worn to softness. Alongside them lie relics. A silver compass rose mounted on black wood, a dagger with a mother-of-pearl hilt, and at the bottom, another strip of parchment. This one reads, "When the tide brings him back, follow." The words sit wrong in your stomach. Him. You hear it before you see it. The faint creak of rigging, the flap of a sail catching wind that doesn't touch your own ship. You look to port. Through the thin mist, a tall, narrow shape slides into view. A ship. No lanterns. No oars. Just movement. Silent but deliberate. It's the Buzzard's ship. You know it without knowing how. The hull is dark, the sails ragged, yet somehow full. The figure at the helm stands tall, a tricorn low over his brow. Historians still argue whether ghost ships are just mirages, but no trick of light can make your skin crawl like this. The whispering tide shifts as if caught by an invisible hand, turning to follow. The crew stirs, some cursing, some crossing themselves. Rook shouts orders, but the wind's gone strange, filling sails, then dropping them flat, over and over, steering you no matter what you do. You grip the echo stone in your palm. It's warm, alive. The Buzzard's ship glides ahead, leading you away from shore. Closer now, you can see the helm is empty. No one there. Yet the wheel turns. The ship vanishes into a bank of fog so thick it swallows the stars. You follow inside the fog. The world changes. The water goes still. The air feels heavy, muffled, like sound can't escape. Shapes loom on either side. Tall, narrow rocks like teeth in a jaw. And then, without a sound, the Buzzard's ship is gone. No wake, no sail, just empty water. Only then do you realize the echo stone's hum has stopped, completely. You're adrift, in silence deeper than the sea itself. The silence presses in until it feels like a weight on your chest. Even the creak of your own ship is gone. The crew stands frozen, their eyes flicking to you, to the fog, back to you, as if you might have an answer, or worse, a plan. You look down at the echo stone in your hand. It's cold now, heavier somehow, like it's been soaking up the stillness. You bring it to your ear. Nothing. Then, so faint you almost miss it, a whisper. You're here. The fog shifts. Ahead, dark shapes rise. Black cliffs, but taller, sharper, and wrong in ways you can't name. The tide pulls you toward a narrow cut in the stone, barely wide enough for the hull. You don't steer. You just drift in. The walls close in until the sky is a knife-thin strip above. Water drips somewhere deep inside. Your eyes adjust to the gloom, and there it is, the second door you saw in the vault. But this time, it's not shut. Inside is a chamber that swallows your torchlight. Gold is heaped in mounds higher than a man's head. Jeweled goblets lie beside cracked skulls. Old banners rot on the walls. In the center, atop a raised dais, sits a figure slumped in a carved chair. The tricorn hat leaves no doubt. The Buzzard, or what's left of him. The air smells of salt and something older. His coat hangs in tatters, but in his bony hands rests the same parchment you saw on the gallows. It's whole here. No stains, no missing lines. You step closer, every hair on your neck standing up. His head lifts. Empty sockets fix on you. The jaw moves, slow and deliberate. Take it, he says, voice like wind through a cracked hull. Finish it. You don't remember crossing the space, only that the parchment is suddenly in your hands, and the dais is empty. The gold, the chamber, the cliffs, all dissolve into mist. You're standing on your ship again. The crew looks as if they've just woken from a dream, glancing around in confusion. In your palm, the parchment feels warm. The echo stone hums again, soft and steady, like it never stopped. The sea is calm now, the kind of calm that feels deliberate, as if it's letting you go, for now. You lean on the rail, watching the horizon bleed into soft blues and silvers. The air carries only the faint scent of salt, the distant call of a gull you can't see. The Buzzard's parchment rests safely in your pocket. You don't need to read it yet. There will be time for that later. Days, maybe weeks. The hunt is far from over, but the pace is no longer urgent. For the first time in what feels like forever, you let yourself breathe. The sails billow gently. The water murmurs against the hull, a low, steady rhythm. Even the crew's movements have softened, their steps quieter, the tension in their shoulders unwinding with each passing mile. You close your eyes for a moment and feel the ship's subtle sway, the familiar give of the deck beneath your feet. The hum of the echo stone has settled into something almost soothing, like a distant lullaby played on a single, endless note. Above you, the clouds thin, letting the sun paint warm streaks across the water. The cliffs, the vault, the figure in the chair, all of it drifts further away with each breath. Soon, it will feel like a story you heard once, told by someone else in another lifetime. The sea stretches ahead, wide and open. Somewhere out there, the rest of the map waits. But tonight, it's enough just to sail. Enough to let the quiet wrap around you like a blanket. to hear the slow sigh of the wind in the rigging, and to watch the fading light smooth itself across the waves. Sleep will come easy, and when it does, the sea will keep its secrets, for now.